All right, so we left our story on Sunday where you see this little boy laying there. That's where we left it. He had just fallen down through the trees, and there was a dull thud as he hit the ground. Philip and I hurried down the tree as fast as we could. I sat at the bottom of the tree just trembling. I couldn't even look. I was so scared that maybe Terry was dead. Philip was on his knees beside Terry, and he was trying very hard to see what was going on. Ruthie said, I don't think that he's dead, but I have to go get some men and the doctor. We've got to get him out of here. You have to stay here with him, and you have to stop crying. You must stay here with him and watch over him. You need to be brave. I can run fast, and Terry may die if the doctor doesn't come. I looked at Terry. He looked as though he were asleep. Oh, he was so pale. I wondered if he was dead. If he was dead, where had he gone? Did he go to be with the Lord Jesus? As Jane Collins had, that little girl's grave that I saw by the church? Is that what had happened? Maybe he was already with the Good Shepherd. Oh, but probably not, because Terry didn't even know about the Good Shepherd. I had never told him. That was on me. I had never shared that with him. So he probably didn't even know who the Good Shepherd was. Oh, God, please make Terry better, and don't let Terry die. Please give me a chance to tell him about you, the Good Shepherd. I sat there just watching Terry. I was terrified. I was scared to even watch him, because I watched as his chest moved up and down, so I knew he was breathing, but he was so pale and so lifeless. It seemed like forever that I had to sit there. And finally, Philip and the doctor arrived. The doctor looked at me and asked me if he had moved at all. No? Does that mean he's dead? No, he's not dead. He's just really badly hurt. You were brave to stay here alone, but we need to get the little boy out of the woods and to the hospital. And so they loaded Terry onto a stretcher. The doctor and several men loaded Terry onto a stretcher, and they took him to the hospital in the big city. The doctor promised us that he would tell us how Terry was. That night, when Philip and I got home, neither one of us felt like eating dinner at all. We told Aunt Margaret everything that had happened, and she did her best to comfort us. We just couldn't wait till it was time to go to bed, because then Philip and I could talk together. Finally it was time, and Aunt Margaret came up and tucked us in and told us good night. I listened, and after I heard her go down the steps and I knew that she was gone, I hurried as fast as I could across the hall to Philip's room, and as I entered Philip's room, I could tell that he had been crying. Ruth, do you think he's going to die? No, he's not going to die, because as I was there with him by myself, and he was laying on the ground, I prayed and I asked God to make Terry better. So I believe that he is going to get better and that he's not going to die. Well, Philip said, I prayed too, all the way home, but I don't know if God heard my prayers, because I'm not really all that good all the time. But Philip, you don't have to be good. You have to belong to the shepherd. You just have to belong to the shepherd, that's all. Oh, I've been wanting to tell you so much about the Good Shepherd, but I've never had the opportunity to do it. You see, when I ran away, and that minister that found me, he gave me a picture of a shepherd and a sheep, and the shepherd was rescuing the sheep. And he told me that was Jesus, and that Jesus wanted me to become his sheep. And all I had to do was ask him into my heart and ask him to forgive me. So Philip, on the way home from the minister's house that day, I knelt under a tree and I asked Jesus, I ask Jesus to forgive me. I ask him to forgive my sins, to forgive my naughtiness, and to help me to be a follower of his and to be a child of his. Wow. Philip said, I wish I could ask him too. You think that I could? Oh, I am sure you could. I should think it would be easier. It would be much easier for him to find you than it was for him to find me, because you're so good. And I was so naughty. And I still am sometimes. But I'm trying to let Jesus help me. Philip looked at me and he says, I'm not good all the time. You see the outside of me, but you have no idea what's on the inside. And I am not good on the inside. Oh, Philip, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The good shepherd wants you to come to him. Here, hold on just a minute. I ran across the hall to my room and I grabbed my picture and I showed him the shepherd leaning down over to get the sheep, to get the lamb. And I said, this is what Jesus wants you to do. He wants you to come to him. Ruth, do you think I could ask him now? Oh, I know you can ask him now. You sure can. Well, then you're going to need to go away, Ruth, because I have to be alone when I do this. We'll talk about it in the morning. I went back across the hall to my room and jumped into my bed and pulled the covers up. This was so exciting. Philip was asking Jesus to come into his heart, and I could just imagine the celebrations that were going on in heaven because another sinner had come to Jesus. Another lamb had been found and brought to the Good Shepherd. I was so excited. I fell asleep. The next day we heard how Terry was doing. He was badly hurt. He had hurt his head and his back and would be in the hospital in the big city for a long time. Philip and I wished so badly that we could go to the big city to see him, but it was way too far away. There was no way we could do that. So we wrote letters to him so that he would have some friends that were in touch with him, even though he couldn't see us and we couldn't see him. We never heard back from him, but we continued to write letters and to tell him about the eggs in the nest and about all the birds and all the flowers and everything that was happening in the woods. We continued to tell him that in letters. And even though we never heard back from him, the doctor let us know that he was healing, but it was going to take a long time. Finally, one day, we did get a letter. We got a letter from Terry. And in that letter, he said that he was home from the hospital and he would like for us to come visit him. He needed somebody to come visit him because he was in bed all the time and he wasn't able to get out. And so he gave us his address. His address was Willow Cottage, The Hollows, Tanglewoods. Sounds like a very interesting address, but anyway, my aunt said that we could go visit Terry, so we did. She just warned us before we left, don't stay too long because I'm sure that he can't take company for a long time. We went running to find this address of Willow Cottage in the Hollows and Tanglewoods, and we came upon this place that looked abandoned, actually. It was a broken down cottage with rags stuffed in the broken windows. The chimney was half falling down, and the slates on the roof were blown off, and there were holes in the roof. There was a little stream of water flowing outside the door. There's no way anyone lives here, Philip said to me. You're telling me? I can't even imagine that. Yeah, I can't even imagine there's anything in there. Maybe some animals that climb through the holes in the roof. We turned to start to go away when suddenly the door opened. And there stood a lady. She had dark skin and her hair was tied in a hanky. And we could tell by looking at her that we knew that she was a gypsy. Her face looked tired and unhappy. She had dark eyes that looked exactly like Terry's. And as we stared at her, we thought, surely this can't be the place that Terry lives. What you kids be wanting around here? She asked us. Please, Terry wrote us a letter and he asked us to come see him, but we couldn't find where he lives. Could you tell us where Terry lives? Are you the children that was with my Terry when he fell out of the tree? door, and as we walked through the door, it was terrible. It was dark. It was gloomy. There was only one window, and it was way up high where you couldn't even see out of it. As we looked around, we thought, wow, we had no idea this is where Terry lived. And as our eyes began to adjust to the darkness and the gloom, we saw in the corner there was Terry, and he was on a bed, just laying there on a bed. As we got closer to the bed, we looked and we couldn't believe it was Terry. He was so pale and so thin. He didn't even look like himself. And he had a big frown on his face. He looked so unhappy. He didn't smile. He didn't move. He just lay there, very still, looking at the ceiling. As soon as he realized we were there, his eyes filled with tears, and tears began to stream down his face. We could tell that he had suffered so much in the last months that he had been at the hospital. Our visit turned out not to be a very happy one because Terry was very upset and very tired, and he was just annoyed at everything. He complained about not being able to move and not being able to see the sunshine and not being able to look out the window. He couldn't read very well because he hadn't been educated. There seemed to be nothing for him to do, and he just lay there day after day with nothing to do and not able to move, not even able to see the outside world. We felt terrible for him. While we were there, Terry's mother came in with his lunch. And again, we were appalled. All she brought him was a cup of tea and a crust of bread. We looked and our hearts sank. I cannot believe this is all he has to eat. Why didn't we remember to bring him some food? What were we thinking? Philip and I looked at each other silently, but we knew what each other was thinking. Why hadn't we remembered? Terry saw us looking at each other and he said, my mother had to quit work because somebody had to take care of me. So there's no money. There's no food. There's nothing. We have no money for anything. We promised him that we would bring him food when we came back to visit. And Philip also promised him that he would bring him the bird book so that he had something that he could look through while he lay there day after day. We can't come back tomorrow because we have a dentist appointment, but we'll come back the next day. I promise we will. For certain sure? Terry asked. Yes, for certain sure, Philip said. We will be back the day after tomorrow. As I walked home, I was so thankful for my strong legs and my body, and for my room with windows that I could see out of, and for the good food that Aunt Margaret made for us. If only Terry would have the same stuff. We would go see Terry very often. As often as we could get away, we would go to his house and we would visit with him. And I think that's the only thing that kept him alive was our visits, because he looked forward to us coming, because all he could do was lay flat on his back and stare at the ceiling. We took him several things of food. We took him a big basket of apples from our orchard, and we would take him food. Aunt Margaret would pack him food for him and his mom, and we would take it so they would have something to eat. The day we took the apples, we had shined them up that we could actually see ourselves in them. It was like a mirror. It was pretty awesome, actually. And Terry's mom seemed very interested, and she said, "Where did you get those apples? Did you pick them from your garden?" We were amazed because she never talked to us, so it seemed a little weird that she was asking us these questions. But we told her, yes, we had gotten them from the orchard right by our house. She went about her business, and we continued to visit with Terry that day. As we got home, the nights were really, really hot, and as I lay on my bed, I was so hot I threw the sheet back, and I was hoping that some of the air would come in from the window so that I could get a little less hot. This night was one of those nights. And as I tiptoed across the hall to Philip's room, Philip was looking out the window. He had his elbows on the window, and he was looking out the window, and I pushed him aside a little, stuck my head out beside him. We watched as the moon climbed higher and higher, and it was so big and so bright, it looked like it was daylight outside. Philip, have you ever been outside on the hills at night?" "Oh, no, I haven't," Why are you asking? Let's go. Let's go, I said. Come on, Philip. I gave his arm a pull. We tiptoed as quietly as we could down the hall to the front door, and as we got to the front door, we turned the key and it creaked. We stood very still, listening, hoping that no one had heard. After it didn't seem like anybody was coming to get us, we decided that we would try the door, and we opened it, and it grated, it stuck a little bit, so it made noise, and we stopped again, just fearing that maybe Aunt Margaret had heard. But it didn't seem that nobody did. We went out the door and closed the door quietly behind us, as quietly as we could. And we stood on the front lawn and we looked. We marveled at the beauty that the big old moon was showing, like it was daylight outside, like we could go anywhere because it was so light because of the moon. We looked at the sky, the millions of stars, they looked so far away. I quietly slipped my hand inside of Philip's, and we began to walk. We tiptoed, We tiptoed towards the orchard because we didn't want to let anybody know where we were. We didn't want anybody to hear us. We were walking to the orchard. We went walking through the orchard. We were about halfway through the orchard when all of a sudden, Philip tightened his grip on my hand and his fingernails began to dig into my hand. You'll have to come back on Sunday and find out what happens next with Philip and Ruth.